Yes, so I have now started a new video just as we are entering into Penang Bridge, yeah. And hopefully the cameras are still aligned all right. And you can see some signs saying, touch and go, smart tag, RFID. Basically, when they first started these highways, people were paying for their toll by cash, and then they started some kind of electronic card system, which was called touch and go. And then they started giving people devices that, the touch and go, you had to tap on a certain kind of a reader. Then they started giving people devices called smart tags, where you could put your touch and go card into your device, and then it will just electronically read. But now they've started something else as well, which is called RFID, which is basically something that is scanned by radio frequency, and then the payment goes from an e-wallet. And again, there are some who will say this system is better or that system is better and this is more efficient. For me personally, I don't know. I suspect that the RFID might be a more efficient way, but I wouldn't put it past, the business interests, to be also playing a factor in which one is being chosen or promoted by the government. Yeah. And when I say business interests, it's whatever is in the interest of business people as well as politicians. Yeah. Right, the Penang Bridge used to be just 2 lanes on each way. 2 lanes going to Penang and 2 lanes coming back, and then later they expanded it, and now there are 3 lanes. There's a lot of traffic on this bridge, so there are lots and lots of people who drive in and out of Penang. Yeah? Many people who work in Penang live on the mainland in Butterworth and even in Kulim, because the price of housing is really expensive in Penang. And then at the same time, many people who work in the industrial areas in Kulim, those who are in the management side and who are highly paid, they prefer to live in Penang because it's got all the urban amenities they need. Then here we've got a couple of motorcycles. Over here they call them big bikes. They're not really big, they're just motorcycles. The other ones are just the normal so-called motorcycles. Here are mosquito-like structures, very noisy but very fast, very dangerous to drive. Like in most Asian countries, people who drive on motorcycles do so for the economy. So the smaller motorcycles, or motorized bicycles, so to speak, very cheap to drive and maintain, but they're also extremely dangerous. They're sharing the same roads and highways as big cars and trucks and buses, though in some places they have started making separate lanes for these motorcycles to use, but unfortunately they are not very well maintained, and so some of them are rather dangerous to be driving on. So generally speaking, I would not advise people, if you can afford it, don't buy a motorcycle. Get a simple car, because it's just safer. Yeah. All right. So, like I said, it tends to get a little bit congested on the Penang Bridge. We are approaching the center span, so the bigger trucks would slow down or not be able to keep their speed as they are climbing uphill on the center span. The center span has to be a bit high because ships and boats would pass through the channel at the center span area where they dredge the bottom of the sea to make it a bit deep. This is like a fixed bridge, so it's not like some bridges in some parts of the world where the gates of this are raised and lowered when they want to allow ships to pass. So if a ship is got too high clearance that is unable to cross the center span, then just bad luck. It can't go through. So anyway, the center span is raised as much as the designers thought they could get by, but then trucks find it difficult to maintain the speed up. Then traffic tends to slow down a little bit. So that becomes another apparent congestion, and then it starts to clear. Now you can see across the bridge on the other side, that's Penang Island. On the left, on our left is where the industrial area is. On the right, far to the right is, if I don't know the camera whether it was panning to that area or not. On the far right is where Georgetown is. That's the city part. And then straight ahead and across the hills of Penang, there is a famous hill and called, guess the name. No, it's not called guess the name. It's called Penang Hill, which is there. And so, and then right across from it is the other side of the island where the better beaches are, the famous tourist beaches. On the left, like I said, is the industrial area. The airport is also on the left. And if you keep driving further down on the left, about 15-20 kilometers away, you go to the mountainous area of Penang. Well, you would call it a hill, I suppose, but over here to us is they're like mountains already. And that's where the famous durian plantations in Penang are, and the famous nutmeg plantations and farms are. And I drive there, and sometimes I think I've posted on my YouTube about nutmegs and the juices. The best nutmegs, the most flavorful ones are from Penang area, because nutmeg trees require a specific kind of a soil with specific alkalinity and minerals and hilly environment and good rainfall throughout the year, and that area of Penang has it all. And ditto with the durian trees as well. They are very fussy about the kind of environment and soils they're growing on, and so the hills of Penang have them, and very famous. And just across from us on our left, as we are taking this curve, is the university, famous Science University of Penang. Or it used to be famous once upon a time, but now it seems like everybody claims to be running a university. Nevertheless, we have now come into the main line, and we are now on what is called the coastal road of the mainland. And if we drive straight down this road, we are headed to Georgetown, the city center. Now, hang on, I'm not going to Georgetown today. Today I'm going to do a gig at Healy Max, which is on the way to the beach area. So I need to leave this coastal highway, and I need to hop on and merge into a road that goes towards the bridge. And I'm going to merge into a road which is another landmark road in Penang, a famous road. It cuts right across from this coastal road into like the center-ish of the island, and that road is called Green Lane. Used to be a very picturesque road lined with huge, big, old trees on the sides and the center. They've still tried to maintain many of these trees, but of course now, the pressures of commercial enterprises set in, and so there's lots of buildings that line both sides of the road. A lot of residential buildings, have been converted into commercial buildings, which is a bit of a pity. Yeah? Some nice houses are now commercial buildings. You have some old heritage buildings which are now fast food restaurants and stuff. Oh well. And then all over Penang, if I'm driving, you'll notice that they have these high-rise buildings which they call them condominiums. They are, of course. And so basically there's a lack of land space. It's just an island. So they've started building these high-rise buildings, and people buy them. Yeah, they do. So what choice do they have? And they also love the lovely view they get from the high-rise building, view of the mountains and the view of the sea. Yeah, but but some years further down the road, some other guy starts building another high-rise building across from this first high-rise building. So if you buy a high-rise building and you got a lovely view of the sea, 10 years from now some other building might come, and then you might just be having a view of the balconies of the next new high-rise building, and you can have a view of their laundry being dried on the balconies and stuff like that. Such is life. But nevertheless, you can see this fair bit of greenery on this side, of the road. It used to be so green in Penang, and I suppose one cannot really blame the governments for the urbanization, because Penang is a city, and it's the commerce that drives everything, and they have, to be fair to them, put in a fair bit of effort to maintain some of the old green thingies, the greenery, the trees and stuff. But at the same time, the commercial pressures, in my opinion, are pushing them further and further away from an aesthetic kind of scenery. And now we're getting more and more buildings, and then once you start getting politicians who think in terms of business and money, and they believe that they'll get the votes when people are well-to-do, again it's got to do with money, you find that beauty and nature will get sacrificed. One of my pet peeves about Penang is that despite all the so-called development that's taking place, you can hardly find a public bench or a tree with shade and a bench underneath it to sit down and relax. You can walk all you want in Georgetown, but if you just wanted to sit down and relax, there is no place. There are no such things. You have to go into some restaurant or some shop or something and sit there. And then they might have so-called public parks, which are invariably too small, and they just not having people who actually know anything about what is beauty, running the town councils. Now if you look on both sides of the road now, you will see what I mean. This beautiful old trees, they've trimmed them now, so they've not really been cut. So to be fair, it's fair. The trees have been trimmed, and later they'll become green all over again. But you look at the buildings on the sides, petrol kiosks and houses that have now become businesses, and you just see they're straightforward. They're ugly. They're just bloody ugly. And they allow this to happen. Of course, there is pressure on space But I'm sure if somebody had thought things out carefully, there would have been some way to, have things less ugly. It's the only word for it, yeah. It would have, which is why I can't visualize myself, like living in Penang. I can come here, to the city, do shows here, and occasionally go to restaurants. But to actually live here and to have to see this all time, no way. Yeah. And the the sad thing is, Penang people who live in Penangites, yeah, sorry Penangites, they don't even know that they are living in in such a disgusting environment, yeah, so to speak. They'll just say that, oh, we've got some beautiful places. It's not a question of having some beautiful places in your island, it's your whole bloody island has to be beautiful. Everything, there has to be a concept to it. So you'll have this, pockets of places that used to be beautiful now turn ugly, and then later whatever so-called beautiful places are still existing, further down the road they will start to become like this, because somebody will say, oh, we need to have commercial development on this island. Oh well. And we are driving down this green lane, which is no longer green. Well, this section of it is no longer green, but towards the later part, yeah, it becomes green again. So that's not too bad. And somehow the traffic on the first half of this green lane drive tends to flow. Because like the traffic light system here is a somewhat intelligent thing. Quite a long time ago they programmed the traffic lights in such a way that if you were driving at a steady speed, and you were in the middle of the stream of cars, so to speak, and you drove at a steady speed within the limit, then as you approach the next intersection, the lights there would be green as well, and the next one will be green as well. You notice something like that is happening to us as we are driving, yeah. So there is actually a flow of traffic, but all of this then comes to naught when we come to another area of intersections. You just need to have one area with some weird turn off or traffic slowing down some place, and then there'll be a back pile up of cars, just unable to move forward. And we'll come to that in a short while. In a short while we'll come to an overpass which we have to take. On the left of it is the State Mosque of Penang, a large building. It's a landmark. The overpass is for an intersection. The road that runs across it on the right is Georgetown, the city center. On the left, the road goes towards the hills of Penang, Penang Hill, an area that they call Air Itang. Right, so on our left is the State Mosque. Not sure if the camera will show it. I'm just keeping the camera on a driver's on a view. I don't want to even try to touch and manipulate it. Got to focus on the road. I just hope this thing is recording as we are going along, because I've got no idea, yeah. Maybe I'll just stop the camera here for a short while and start again, just so that we can, have videos in segments.